Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I've always waited forever to say those words. Hey guys, how you doing? And today I'll be walking you through paper 2. We're talking about physical science paper 2. And if you haven't subscribed, what have you been waiting for? Just hit that subscribe button already. Like, come on now. It doesn't hurt. Just press, click. Okay, let's go. Now, while we spoke about paper 1, the structure of it, paper 2 is no different. However, when we get into the deep dive part, that's where the differences are. So firstly, just like paper 1, paper 2 in physical science, remember, has got 20 marks that are allocated to multiple choice. Right, now remember that multiple choice sections covers every single part. It is actually staggered in terms of your level 1 to level 4 questions. They vary in terms of difficulty, and they are actually arranged as per section. Now the second part of it, right, please remember that we are now going to deep dive into just the other part, which is now the long form questions. So question 2 has to do with organic chemistry. So question 2, question 3, and question 4. That's the organic chemistry section part. Now question 1, remember we are just looking at organic chemistry using the IUPAC name, just using, in this case, just knowing the structure and knowing the organic, or rather their molecular formula and all other types of things, right? So please, you need to also make sure that you know that as much as you possibly can. So I've got an entire playlist, as I said. I keep saying this because, guys, like literally, your uncle is the plug. Né? So in this case, I've got all the playlist that you need in terms of organic chemistry. Now, please remember, guys, that chemistry, or rather organic chemistry, is the biggest section in paper 2. So you really want to focus yourself, right? It's about 33% of this entire chemistry paper, worth about 50 marks. So you do want to make sure that you focus quite extensively on it, okay? So you have to know alkanes, alkenes, alkynes, and haloalkanes, alcohols, carboxylic acids, esters, aldehydes, and ketones. So all of those are actually part of your just your organic molecule structures and all of that. Now, here's another thing that is really quite important, guys. It is very important, especially when you are using the IUPAC names. Not only just to know how to name it, but remember the small nyana hohakis, right? The hyphens. So for instance, if I'm going to have propan 2-ol, remember that between the 2 and the letter before and after, there must be those hyphens. So please don't forget when giving that name there. Now, the second part about it is we are now going to focus on intermolecular forces in organic chemistry. In fact, it is quite important for us to know, this stems from grade 11, all the way from grade 11, to know the different types of intermolecular forces that you have, from dipole, you've got, your hydrogen bonds, which vary in terms of strength. You have to be able to relate intermolecular force to the strength of organic molecule, right? So again, as I did say, guys, you know that I'm the plug, right? So you can go onto the playlist. You can find not only that, but you will also find just a full playlist that is taking you through on how to answer questions on intermolecular forces in organic chemistry. Now, very important, the next part of it is to know the reactions in organic chemistry, right? You know the difference between your addition reaction from your the substitution reaction, as well as elimination reaction. So please also know the conditions of those reactions. So I do have a video again that I have on that section. So guys, as I said, that's worth almost 50 marks, almost a third of your total chemistry paper. So it is quite important that you really make sure that you master organic chemistry. Right, and now we get on to the next one. So the next section, which is after organic chemistry, now you're looking at question number 5. You're looking at rate and extent of reactions. So you need to know what are the 5 factors that affect the rate of a chemical reaction. Now, of course, whilst this is not meant to be a lesson, right, but you remember that you know that concentration, you know that you've got the state of division, you've got temperature, you've got all of those 5 factors, which includes a catalyst as well as surface area. So it is important for you to know that this is one section where they like giving either tables and graphs. You have to be able to interpret this. And now, what is important in chemistry? The quantitative aspects of chemistry, i.e. stoichiometry, right? So very important to realize that, remember, in chemistry, we are going to apply this in every single section. Like, first of all, calculating the number of moles, right? So you have to know how to convert from either concentration or number of particles and all of that into moles, and using the molar ratio in order to determine the moles of something else. So you're going to have to know the definition, number 1, of rates of reactions, right? So we remember that is the change in concentration of products formed or reactants used per unit time. And you're going to have to also know how to calculate the rate of a reaction. Now, it is quite important for you to note when you are calculating the rate of a reaction, right? Just note the SI units that you are given. Meaning, if they say to you, let's say it's moles per second, what does it mean? It means that you will calculate that rate of reaction by taking the change in the moles divided by the change in time. So make sure that if it is not given to you in moles, you first convert it to moles so that you can calculate that rate of reactions in the correct manner. Right, now remember that we are also going to apply the collision theory, right? You have to relate the collision theory to any of the 5 factors. So we're going to have to explain how do you apply, in this case, the collision theory as pertaining to all of the 5 factors that affect the rate of a chemical reaction. Now guys, whilst this section is really not the easiest, but it is possible for you to pick up some marks. Your low-hanging fruit here would be the definition, and in this case, just the last part where you explain in terms of how the collision theory is affected by all of the 5 factors. So that is the part on rates of reactions. And now the next section, chemical equilibrium. Some tips, tricks, and all the good stuff. Well, in this section, guys, you are going to look at, the application of Le Chatelier's principle. Now, think about it. This is the one part where, there's a lot of explanation that's involved in terms of the forward reaction and the reverse reaction. So, I think the one thing that you want to make sure is first know the definition of what a reversible reaction is, right? And then secondly, what you also want to do is just know the definition of Le Chatelier's principle, right? Or rather, how to state Le Chatelier's principle. Another very important thing is to know what is chemical equilibrium, right? Now, these are really the easiest part in this section. But the one thing that I always get consistent questions on it is on what you guys term as the rice table, right? So this is the table where we are now calculating the value of Kc. And in fact, what I've done is I've ensured that I can actually take you through this section quite adequately so that you can be able to not only calculate Kc, but at times you need to actually work the other way around. Meaning, you start from the end, given the Kc value, you have to find out, let's say, what are the initial moles or whatever the case is. Please guys, that usually is worth out of, it is worth 9 marks out of perhaps plus minus 23. But I want you to also be very careful here, not to overly emphasize and focus on that one calculation, right? And ignore all the other theoretical parts in this question, right? So make sure that you can apply equilibrium principles, right? That is Le Chatelier's principle, and importantly, also on graphs. So guys, you can be able to score some marks here, but I must admit, this is really not one of the easiest sections to pick up marks from. So if it is that you're not feeling very confident in this section, I will advise perhaps it might be worth it to start on the other sections, pick up some good marks there, and then come back to this section much later. Acids and bases. Now, this you might say, oh, this is the monster of them all. I beg to differ. Actually, you'll find out that acids and bases can really be quite simple. Now, it ranges from 18 marks to about 24 marks, 23 perhaps, but here's my advice for you. Right, again, you want to have your low-hanging fruits. What are those? The definitions on, what is an acid according to the Arrhenius or the Lowry-Bronsted theorem, or in this case, what is the definition of a base? But what you also need to know is how to either ionize an acid or dissociate a base, right? So this is where you can actually just pick up some marks. You want to know which are the strong acids. Now, if I may advise you, please, you'll always have those 3 strong ones: hydrochloric acid, your nitric acid, as well as sulfuric acid. These are the 3 big ones, right? Everything else considered very weak, but in this case, you need to know how it actually ionizes. You need to be able to note in this case that acids such as sulfuric acid are regarded as diprotic. A diprotic acid is one that gives you 2 protons in this case for every 1 mole that you get, right? Now guys, again, these are just the easier part of acids and bases, and so you need to be able to know just the theoretical part. Now, you'll see that the bulk of the marks that are given in acids and bases are really on the theoretical questions of the section, right? And that's where, as I said, you can pick up some marks. Now, let's go on to the next section in this part. So remember that you've got your straightforward calculations on titration. This is where you can use your formula CAVA over CBVB is equal to NA over NB. I do take you through that. Look at titration. That's a straightforward calculation, and you'll be able to pick up some marks. And now the last part of it. So remember, these are the long questions on acids and bases. So if you look at things like, we call them back titration, the formula is always the same. They're long questions, the 8-mark to 9-mark question on acids and bases. Whilst this, guys, is really quite a difficult question to go through, right? I do show you the technique on really how to answer it. So I would advise that please go and look at the acids and base playlist, and you will see that it is really not that impossible. It is also very important to note that you can also just look at stoichiometry, just normal stoichiometry, where you can actually just pick up some marks on that. And honestly speaking, guys, please, again, I do implore you, do not overemphasize the importance of that 8-mark question. It is just one question out of the many that you've got. So please do make sure that you pick up some marks on the other parts. And now let's go to the next one. And now the next part, I love this part. It's actually one of the best sections in chemistry, electrochemistry, right? So remember, You need to know the redox reactions, oxidation, reduction, and if you haven't watched it, guys, you have to go and look at that ANC rule that I always make on this section. So the galvanic cell, just knowing the fact that you are converting chemical energy into electrical energy, and just the conditions on the electrochemical cell. So very important for you to note in this case, oxidizing agent, reducing agent, and to know how to apply it as pertaining to the anode as well as the cathode. Guys, I do say this and I will not stop saying it. I do have a playlist on all of this. If I've said it enough, I haven't said it enough times, right? I do have a playlist, and please make sure that you go through that before you go into the exam. Now, the next part of it is that now you are going to have to calculate the EMF. You need to know the net cell reaction as well as the net ionic expression rather that is given in this part. Now, at the end of the day, all of these, I go through it as I said in my playlist. I will keep saying that, okay? Right, and now just the last part as I walk you through just the electrochemical cell. So remember that the next part of it, which is usually actually the last question, this is now looking at the electrolytic cell. Remember that you've got three processes that you're looking at. You've got the process of electrolysis, which is converting compounds, right, into new ones by using electrical energy. You've got the process of purification, right, where you are trying to purify a metal, right? And you've got the last one where you are electroplating. Those are the three processes. I do take you through quite, a number of these. For those of you that are doing also IEB, please remember that you need to also look at the chloroalkali industry. In fact, I think all of us need to look at it as pertaining to this section. Now, please note that you've got also just the last part of it that sometimes is very theoretical, right? There's a lot of explanation that needs to be done, but I do say, guys, the structure of it is actually all the same, right? So please make sure that you can know the definitions of what the process of electrolysis is. Those again are your low-hanging fruit, and you can actually go through this quite extensively. So guys, I do have not just playlists this time. I have taken you through past exam questions, like literally walk you through all the question papers in chemistry. So please do make sure that before you can write your chemistry exam, you can actually attempt one question paper, and after you've done so, go and reference to the answers that I give through that. I do have a playlist on that as well. As I said, I'll keep saying that. Now finally, guys, whilst chemistry is actually thought of as the more difficult section in physical science, which to some extent I do agree, but I think it's much easier to actually pick up marks in chemistry than it is to do so in physics, right? And the reason for that is that remember that chemistry has a lot of theory in it as opposed to physics. There's a lot of calculations that you do there, and it's easier, to make mistakes there than it is in chemistry. So please do familiarize yourself with the, just the definitions, with just how to, things like your redox reactions, how to use your periodic table, just things that really are theory based. So as I said to you, it is possible for you to pick up marks in this section. And now to end it off, I really want to wish you all of God's best. We've taken you through everything in terms of your preparation for your exam. Perhaps you've done your best to try and prepare. I know you feel a sense of anxiety, which is natural, right? But I really, really want to wish you all of God's best as you prepare. And to some of you, perhaps 2024 might not have been your year. Perhaps you've gone through really difficult and trying times during this year, and you don't feel like you really have got this in terms of the exam. I want to say to some of you who are feeling that way, that it's not the end of the road. You can still try again. If you truly believe that you can, or whether you believe you can't, well, one person says you are always right. But in this case, I want you to believe that you can. And remember that everything, right, is possible to them that believe. I want you to believe in yourself. I want you to work hard, and please use the resources that are curated for you, that are there to help you. And if you are struggling just a little bit with anxiety and you think that it might not be manageable, I think it might be also time for you to speak to someone who can be able to help. Maybe speak to your teacher or your parent, and of course, you can reach out to us and we'll refer you to services that can be able to assist you. Guys, it's really been a pleasure, and I do want to say this again. End 2024 in a bang, and for those of you that are going to watch this at some point later, end whatever year that this is in a bang. I'll see you guys again next time. Sharp, sharp.